Hey friends, welcome to the Sample Ox Mystery Sample Challenge, where we will unravel a mystery product using our senses. Here's how it works. We have two guests on the program, a challenger and a category expert. Our challenger is tasked with tasting and eventually guessing the mystery product from three different possible descriptions. They'll be joined by our expert guest, who chose the product and knows a lot about it. Our expert will guide us through the tasting and give us clues along the way. So today we're going to be tasting a mystery butter with our expert guest, Madilyn Ray. Madilyn is the director of product development at California Dairies, where she oversees the creation of butter and milk powder brands that you probably have in your house right now. She has a food science background, and before starting at California Dairies, she worked in the cheese industry. So she has a whole bunch of dairy experience. Thank you for being here, Madilyn.
Hi, Lindsay. Good to see you.
So, Madilyn, butter. Most people kind of frame butter as either like salted or unsalted. Maybe they have something spreadable, but for most people, there's probably not a lot to it, but I know that there is actually a lot to it. So, can you kind of paint a picture of the different types or styles of butters that exist?
Yeah, so there is a lot of technology actually that goes into butter making. So obviously butter is it's a product that's been around for literally thousands of years. And so the way that we make it today is a bit different than how it was made back then. So there is a lot of technology that goes in, a lot of efficiencies, and there's a lot of different things that we do with our butter products. So like you said, they can be salted, they can be unsalted. We also do like a kind of like a cultured flavored butter. Which would be typical of like our unsalted butter. And then, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are experimenting with products that have different flavors in them, like compound butters, spreadable butters, which would have like an olive oil or something added to them to make them spreadable out of the fridge. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot you can do with butter.
Can you just give us a little bit more context about how to actually taste butter? I've never really tasted butter like this, and I'm sure our guest hasn't either. So can you give us a step-by-step process for how do you even evaluate butter?
Yeah, so we do a lot of tasting actually across our organization. We kind of use them as our guinea pigs when we're developing new products. So typically, obviously you want to have like a very bland kind of like a bread or a cracker or something. We typically like to use unsalted saltine crackers. Sometimes if you're tasting a lot of samples, if you have bread, it can kind of just fill you up and you lose a little bit of like the flavor as you go. So just like a regular unsalted cracker, we try to keep the butter not quite like refrigerated, a little bit less than room temp, so still a little bit chilled. And yeah, we just have people taste it and give us their thoughts.
Now, today's challenger is our friend Teddy Gowan. Teddy is the director of brewing operations at Societe Brewing Company here in San Diego, California. He has a decade of brewing experience and has kind of worked all over the world. When he's not making great beer, you can find him playing the banjo or kind of goofing around with his 2-year-old daughter. Teddy, thank you so much for being here.
How's it going, Lindsay?
So before moving to San Diego, you worked in China for a few years to help build a brewery in Shanghai. Is there anything that you kind of picked up from Chinese culture that you ended up bringing back to the US with you?
Yeah, actually, I got really interested in tea. There's a tea shop right below my apartment. Drank a whole bunch of teas, had a great time, and ended up making friends with the guy at the shop. And he had this beautiful tea table, and I convinced him to let me bring it back to the US with me. So now it's sitting in our living room as a little tea area that we play with. It's a nice little piece of china.
Yes. Are you a daily tea drinker?
I'm mostly coffee. Tea is more of like a special occasion on the weekends in the afternoon.
Yeah, so kind of a ritual. Nice.
Yeah,
Love
absolutely.
it. So I also understand that you came from a dairy family. Do you think that your beer experience or your dairy genetics are going to help you more in today's challenge?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to pull them both today. I'm a little nervous. I don't know. I've never tried butter in this way before.
I think you're ready, Teddy. All right. Thank you guys both for being here today. Before we get started, I want to play a little game. Let's kind of warm you up, Teddy. So to get you ready for today's challenge, I'm going to ask you a few questions about butter. And Madilyn, I'm going to have you reveal the answers and add a little bit of context. So Teddy, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Teddy, how many pounds of butter is produced by California Dairies every year? Is it 4 million, 40 million, or 400 million pounds of butter?
I got to go B, in the middle.
40 million. Madilyn, what is the correct answer?
So the correct answer is over 400 million pounds of butter a year. Mhm.
That is an impressive amount of butter. How much milk does it require to make 400 million pounds of butter?
Yeah, so we're a dairy co-op, first of all. We have 6 factories in California, and we handle over 18 billion pounds of milk a year. So that obviously gets made into about a little over 400 million pounds of butter.
How much milk?
18 billion. That's kind of the average. Yeah, you can't fathom how much that is.
I can't conceptualize that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's just insane. All right, Teddy, number 2. According to Madilyn, how much butter is the appropriate amount to apply to toast? Is it 1 teaspoon? Is it 1 tablespoon? Or is there no such thing as too much butter on toast?
I feel like that's a personal question. It has to be no such thing. I mean, you got to go as much butter as possible. That's
Exactly. Yep, that's the correct answer.
You got to get the layer of saturation and then get on top of saturation. That's how I roll. So now I have a question for both of you. It's about the iconic butter sculpture. We all know and love the butter sculpture. So I'm going to read you some descriptions from 3 different butter sculptures. And all you need to do is tell me which of the descriptions is a real butter sculpture that existed. All right. Is it number 1? Is it Davy Crockett and Bear? This sculpture depicts a life-size Davy Crockett holding a shotgun, smiling calmly at a grizzly bear who's also smiling calmly back at Davy Crockett. Or is it number 2? Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau holding 2 doe-eyed panda cubs on a bench. The artist said, the hardest part to sculpt is Justin Trudeau's face because it's not a material like clay where you have firm control of the shapes you create. Or is it number 3? No state fair is complete without a cow butter sculpture. This one is titled Cow on a Motorcycle. This butter sculpture features an aerodynamically positioned cow on a Harley Davidson wearing driving goggles speeding down the road. Commenting on the accessibility of his art, the artist says, people don't understand how the sculpting is done. It's like magic and just appears. But people, they understand butter. So which one is it? Is it number 1, 2, and 3? Madilyn, which one is correct?
I'm going to go with number 3.
Great. Teddy, which one is true?
I feel like number 3 is probably the right answer, but I really like B with the pandas in Canada. That just seems like that's the fun answer. I'm going to go with B.
There was actually no wrong answer. I could not choose one that was unrealistic. So all 3 of those were actual butter sculptures. So you guys were both right. Wow. Nice work. All right. So I'm sure you guys are all warmed up and ready to go. So Teddy, let's go ahead and get ready to taste some butter. So Teddy, open your butter, take a look at it. And at the end of your full evaluation, you're going to be tasked with guessing our mystery butter from 3 different descriptions. As you're analyzing, consider which of the following best describes the butter that you're evaluating. Is it butter with olive oil, strong butter popcorn and lightly herbal flavor, slight salty taste, mouth coating, and fast melt speed at 73.2% fat and 22.5% moisture? Or is it number 2, the European style salted butter, sweet cream and clean dairy flavor with a slight salty taste, very creamy, and a moderate melt speed at 82.5% fat and 14.5% moisture? Or is it number 3, 80% unsalted butter, strong, tangy, cultured, and butter popcorn flavor with a slight sweet taste, creamy, and fast melt speed at 80.5% fat and 16.5% moisture? Okay, Teddy, now that you've been able to take a look, I want to hear what you saw. So what did you notice about the butter's appearance? And we'll get to the rest of flavor in a minute.
So it looks like a stick of butter. It's uniform in size and shape. It smells like butter.
Well, I'll give you a second to do the rest of your flavor evaluation in a minute. And for now, I want to hear Madilyn. So Teddy, you said it was kind of butter shaped and uniform shape. Madilyn, can you tell us, without giving away the answer, what does the appearance of the butter tell you about how it was produced?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, when we have these different butter products, they're in different packaging styles. So, typically, more of our regular butter that people are used to consuming, eating with, spreading on toast comes in a stick form. And so, this is like a really traditional style. So, you can pretty much tell that it's going to be a regular, either our 80% butter that's standard in the US, or like a European style, which would be at least 82% or above. It comes in like a tub or something. It could be a blend, an oil, like a spreadable oil blend. It could be a whipped product or any of like the compound butters. So if we're adding any flavors or anything like that, would typically come in a tub form.
Cool. So there's stick butter, there's tub butter, and then within the tub, there's kind of like whipped, and within the stick, there's kind of different fat levels and colors and that kind of thing. Cool. So Madilyn, I kind of, when we were getting ready for this, we realized that we didn't really know how butter was made. So in 2 minutes or less, if you could quickly just tell me, how is butter made?
Right. So essentially, I think most people know we take cream from milk. And that's what gets turned into the butter. So within the cream, we have tons of little tiny fat droplets that are all kind of floating around in the cream. So we call that an oil and water emulsion. So we have tiny little droplets of oil surrounded mostly in water. And so each little fat droplet is coated by something called a milk fat globule membrane. And what that does is it protects the fat droplet from any kind of oxidation or degradation on the way to the infant or the calf. And so it also keeps the fat globules from sticking together. It keeps them nice and separate. So when we take our cream, we put it into a butter churn, and the butter churn has some special beaters on it that essentially break that milk fat globule membrane, kind of spills out the fat, and then it allows it to all stick together. And so we create, almost in the beginning of the churn, like giant popcorn balls of butter. And as it moves through the churn, it goes through a couple of different augers and processes that basically squeeze out more moisture, increases the fat. And then that's where we would also introduce salt, or like a salted butter, for example. But yeah, that's pretty much how butter is made in a nutshell.
So it really is just churning, and you're kind of manipulating the fat to make what you need. That's a little simpler than I thought, but there's a lot of science that goes into it.
It goes through a certain, what we call like a crystallization process that kind of aligns all of the different fat molecules. And then within the churn itself, there's a lot of different sections and things, a lot of different churn manufacturers that make all different styles of butter. So we have a couple different at our company as well, so we can make all different styles.
Very cool. Love it. All right, Teddy, I'll bet you're ready to start working on overall flavor. So let's bring you back. So Teddy, as you were kind of listening to Madilyn talking a little bit about butter, what is it that you were kind of tasting and smelling as you were eating it?
Yeah, so again, that sweet aroma, it comes through in the flavor as well. I'm getting a lot of that nice sweet character. It's a little tangy on the flavor as well. I'm not getting a whole lot of salt. And also mouthfeel wise, I'm getting, it's sitting on the tongue, but it's light in my mouth, if that makes any sense. I can tell that it's coating my mouth, but it's a light coat on my mouth. It's not sitting heavy. It makes me want to eat more of it.
As we were getting ready for this, you were excited. You were like, I like butter. So this is something that you're really digging.
Yeah.
Great. So it's kind of light, kind of tangy, not all that salty. So Madilyn, we put the butter flavor map together sometime last year. We kind of tasted a bunch of butters in that process. So when Teddy was describing that, it kind of reminded me of the mouthfeel section with the creaminess that we talked about. What areas of the flavor map does this butter particularly highlight well for you?
Yeah, so in terms of some of those descriptors, so I think Teddy definitely picked up on a tangy, almost like a cultured type flavor. So I believe we have a couple of different flavors within the flavor map, like cream cheese and sourdough. So any kind of tangy, like a lactic, also kind of like an acidic flavor is really good. And yeah, I mean, especially for a lot of the butter that we make in California, it's very stable year round. So anything having to do with like a sweet, clean dairy note is something that we would expect to see in a lot of our butters and wouldn't change too much.
Yeah, so we kind of have a butter that is uniform in shape. It looks kind of butter-like. So Teddy, you should be getting some pretty good hints as to what this butter potentially is. All right, so now comes the time for us to put this all together and guess which of the three descriptions best matches the flavor of the butter that you just tasted, Teddy. So is it number one, the butter with olive oil, number two, the European style salted butter, or number three, the 80% unsalted butter?
My guess is number three for the tangy piece and the salted piece. The salted part was helpful. And also the melt, when you were talking about the tubs of butter, that's when I realized it was probably not the first one. Yeah, I wanted to say that it was crisp, but I've never considered butter as crisp before. But it really is that clean flavor. It really wraps up nicely.
All right, well, Madilyn, was Teddy correct?
Yes, he was correct.
All right, so after all this butter talk, I'm kind of envisioning like a charcuterie board with like little slabs of butter. I kind of want to taste a whole bunch of butter now. So Madilyn, what is kind of the best way to showcase different types of butter besides just kind of eating it?
Yeah, I mean, eating it is always just like, what we like to do. It's kind of our preferred way. Obviously, I mean, butter is a super functional ingredient. I mean, obviously, people use it for baking. It can whip and incorporate air. It helps with leavening of laminated pastries like croissants and things like that. We would call it a flavor potentiator. So fat is really good at bringing out flavors. So pretty much adding it to anything you're baking or cooking is always a good option. And then the thing that's really nice about butter is even though it's so high in fat, there's still a lot of residual proteins and sugars that are kind of left over from the milk. And so if you're you can do like a browning process with it. A lot of people are familiar with brown butter, where you're basically going to cook a little bit of those solids and a little bit of those proteins and sugars, and it just makes a really, really great overall nice flavor for whatever you're cooking with.
So versatile, such a simple ingredient and so many applications. So Teddy, you would think that butter and beer pairing would probably be a bit of a no-no because, diacetyl is an off flavor in beer, but it's a flavor that must be in butter. But after tasting this butter today and kind of after talking about the different applications of butter, do you have kind of any ideas for how to kind of pair beer and butter together?
I think it's a great pairing. The fat and the beer, it would just cut. I mean, I love cheese and beer. That's my favorite thing to pair. I've never considered butter. I don't know why I haven't, because I love butter so much. It just is like a perfect, it makes a lot of sense. That fat, like right now, all I want to do is drink a beer. I should have brought a beer because it just cuts it so nicely. I feel like you could do it with really any beer. If you could do it with a light Pilsner like beer. Yeah, it's really the possibility, because it's so clean and crisp and tangy, it fits. It fits well with beer, and you could go above it or below it as far as the flavor is concerned.
Love it. I think we have a new fun and exciting culinary avenue to explore. So thank you guys so much for being here today. We learned a lot about butter. We learned a lot about butter sculptures. We had a couple laughs along the way. Teddy, you got it right. Pretty pumped for that. And you guys were just really great. So thank you so much for being here. Follow, both of these, follow California Dairies, follow Societe Brewing Company. They're always both putting really cool things out there. Teddy has some beers coming out. He's always pumping beers out. And Madilyn also suggested that there's some pretty fun butters coming out pretty soon too. So keep your eyeballs peeled for what they are doing in their careers. And for all of you guys at home, to continue developing your palate and engaging with experts, download the Sample Ox app in the App Store today. This summer, we're going to be doing a bunch of live, in-person, and virtual events. So follow us on our social media channels to kind of stay in the know. And of course, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more of this kind of content. Thanks again for being here, and happy tasting.